This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham. We're going to talk some UVA sports news here on this Tuesday. And there was a lot to talk about yesterday, Monday. We finally got the news regarding Braxton Key. He will be immediately eligible, as we had suspected. I say suspected, word had come down Friday unofficially. I guess you could say unconfirmed reports, but they felt confirmed to me, but we still didn't want to report on them live. That the NCAA had granted the eligibility to the 6'8" guard from Alabama, originally a transfer from Alabama, came out of high school from Oak Hill Academy, and four-star recruit coming out of high school, actually was recruited by UVA coming out of high school, decided not to come to UVA when DeAndre Hunter ended up at Virginia. They play a similar position, and then after 2 years at Alabama, decides, hey, I'm going to go to UVA. He was a freshman, all SEC freshman performer back in 2017, averaging 5.7 rebounds per game. Had a knee injury before his sophomore season last year. Missed the first 10 games, came back 11 games in. Averaged 7 points and 5.3 rebounds per game. Obviously, without having followed Alabama closely last year, got into after missing those first 10 games, maybe getting sort of behind the eight ball there rotation wise. Avery Johnson, the coach at Alabama, used him off the bench more, and so perhaps some displeasure with playing time. I would understand that, now coming to Virginia, being granted that waiver of immediate eligibility, he'll be part of a team that was ranked in the top 5 of the AP preseason top 25 poll that was released yesterday, and in fact ranked number 5, right behind Duke at number 4, which is ridiculous, as we all know. Duke with 3 freshmen that are expected to carry that team, as has been the case for the last 5 or 6 years now at Duke, a one-and-done type program, and reloading this year again is Coach Krzyzewski, but all those freshmen, and then Virginia has all these veteran guys back, and it'll be interesting to see the mix now. You expect Key will probably be a bench player for this team, probably the first guy off the bench. At 6'8", his versatility will be interesting. His versatility will match, again, DeAndre Hunter. We talked about the comparisons between Hunter and Key when they're coming out of high school. Hunter will start in the backcourt most likely for this team. Virginia plays 3 guards and 2 forwards. We're not talking about the old-time traditional alignment of 2 guards, 2 forwards, and 1 center. Doesn't apply to the way that Tony Bennett uses his team both offensively and defensively. So Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy will start alongside DeAndre Hunter. I presume that's the case. That's not official or anything to that degree. They'll start back in the backcourt, and then I presume the starters in the front court will be Mamadi Diakite and Jack Salt. We know Salt will start. He's a favorite of Tony Bennett's for all the dirty work kind of things he does, the rebounding, the defense, position defense, the screens he sets constantly in that mover blocker offense. And so you would then presume that, again, Key would be the first guy off the bench in the backcourt, probably back there with Marco Anthony being the other guard that will get a lot of time in the backcourt. There's your 5 guys back there. Jay Huff, probably the guy that will get to be the first guy off the bench in the front court. I would assume that that's your 8-man rotation now. Kaihi Clark will probably play a role. Perhaps Francesco Baldacci will also play a role in terms of some minutes potentially as your 9 and 10 guys. But as you get to the ACC play, I think you tend to shorten your bench a bit. You want to go with 8, maybe a 9th guy. But Key will be your 6th guy off the bench, and I've proposed this in some previous columns that to me, so your starting lineup is going to be likely going to be Jerome, Guy, Hunter in your backcourt, Diakite, Salt in your front court. But your death lineup, as I'll call it, I'll use that terminology that the Golden State Warriors use for their finisher lineup, I guess you could call it. Not your starting lineup, but your finisher lineup includes benchman Andre Iguodala. I would assume that Virginia's death lineup would be Jerome, Guy, Hunter, Key, and Diakite. Boy, you talk about the versatility. In that lineup, you've got 3 guys, 6'8" or 6'9", who can cover any position on the floor defensively. At least with Key and with Hunter, you've got and then your backcourt of your traditional backcourt of Jerome and Guy. You got 4 guys who can spread the floor offensively and dribble drive to the basket, hit jump shots. And then Diakite, he's got some versatility, certainly offensively. He's got a jump shot out to about 15 feet, but then what he can do dribble drive wise, from 15 feet in, kind of reminds you a bit of Anthony Gill when he's at his best. And so that's your death lineup, if you ask me. And we'll see how that develops over the course of the season. But the addition of Key makes this Virginia team, and maybe the fact that the AP ballots were sent out last week. And people vote, what they based on what they know, and Key wasn't at least publicly, known to be available to Virginia until Monday. There could be a lot of folks out there who voted and said, yeah, we don't know about Key. So, I've been saying since the end of last season that this year's lineup was really missing one guy. We were on the graduate transfer market like we were last year. Ended up getting Nigel Johnson, who was a key guy in the backcourt for this team, played 15 minutes or so a game. You looked at the grad transfer market. There were some guys out there. Nobody ended up. Tony Bennett and staff ended up not making any offers to any grad transfers who would be immediately eligible. But then when Key's out there, he's better than a grad transfer as far as that goes. He's a guy that was a 4-star high school recruit, a projected NBA draft prospect in a couple of years, and he's now immediately available, just like a grad transfer would have been, and a guy that will certainly play a really huge role. He'll meet that need, to me, the one guy missing need, as far as you had to wonder what would happen if you'd have to have somebody step up. You'd have to have a Marco Anthony, Francesco Baldacci, Jay Huff step up and give you even more minutes. Now those guys don't have to develop quite as quickly. I think he gives you 20, 25 minutes a game. He'll probably average around 20 to 22 when you look at the numbers at the end of the season. But he's a guy that certainly will be a key guy for this Virginia program this year. I think he'll play the role that DeAndre Hunter played for Virginia last year. Hunter averaged about 20 minutes a game. I think it was 19.9 minutes a game that he averaged. Certainly got more time as the season went on, and he was the ACC Sixth Man of the Year. I see Key being a potential guy to contend for that kind of an honor as well this season for Virginia. But now that Hunter moves into the starting lineup and probably eventually gives you between 32 and 35 minutes a game, the versatility that you'll have from Key will make this team dangerous. The question about this Virginia team heading into this season was you got to make up for the loss of 2 guys in Devin Hall and Isaiah Wilkins that were so key to this program for really for the 4 years. Or in Devin Hall's case, he redshirted a year, so he was around for 5 years, and they were real key contributors the last 3 seasons in Charlottesville. And you have to replace 2 guys like that. So how do you do that? Well, one, you add in DeAndre Hunter you move him up from a 6-man role to a starting role. So that's important. And now you add a guy like Braxton Key. He won't start for this team again, but he'll play some really important minutes for this team, and it will be key for this Virginia program this season that's the case. So good news for Virginia fans. Confirmed news that we thought all weekend long we will be hearing soon, probably as early as Monday, and it was Monday as it turns out. It was before lunchtime on Monday. I was out running, so I was late getting the news posted. I'm back. Back. My legs are in my foot, particularly my right foot and the right ankle, in better shape. Knock on wood, I guess, right? I've been dealing with some issues with plantar fasciitis and with a soleus muscle issue and an Achilles issue. But I did an 8-mile run yesterday, and I get back, and the first thing I hear is from my wife, actually. And good for her. She's pointing me in the right direction. She says Key is eligible. So, and in fact, we've got our UVA basketball season preview available online as a book. It's $1.99 is all we're asking. But my lengthy preview of the upcoming UVA basketball season, it's about 9,000 words. So there was some time and effort put into this. But we looked at not only breaking down the roster for this year, but then we kind of looked at some of those issues off the court. Certainly the loss to UMBC, the motivation that may provide, Tony Bennett and his legacy at Virginia, and kind of where UVA basketball has come in the last 5 years and where it's headed from here. So that's all online. You can actually order it through the Augusta Free Press website, and it's something I put a lot of effort into, and I hope that folks can get some value out of. And it's $1.99. You can actually, and a neat thing about it, I think, is that you can download it and read it on your phone if you have a Kindle app on your phone. If you don't, you need to get one. I read all my books online through the Kindle app, and actually just read them on my phone. And so the Kindle app will keep your place if you don't read it all in one sitting. Which reading 9,000 words in one sitting, hey, you can probably do that. Some people can do that, but if you want to start and stop, this will keep your place well for you. So anyway, $1.99 on the Kindle app. You can download that, and so the link for that is on the Augusta Free Press website. It's all over the place on the Augusta Free Press website. You can't miss it. It's also being advertised on our Facebook page. We've got a Twitter link to it as well. So that you'll get all my detailed thoughts. 9,000 words would translate in a traditional book format to close to 40 pages. So it's a good little bit of work there to get you ready for this upcoming 2018-2019 season. So that's upcoming. Quickly, because I'm getting ready to go do my final VMI soccer broadcast of the season this afternoon on Tuesday. I want to take a quick look at UVA football, both the quick look back at the Duke win and then the looking ahead to UNC this coming weekend. UVA 9.5-point favorite heading into the weekend with UNC coming to town. And I'd say, obviously there's a lot of excitement. A lot of folks are talking about how this UVA football program, now at 3-1 in the ACC, you've got Carolina at home this week. You're 9.5-point favorite there. Pitt next week. You're likely going to be a decent favorite against Pitt at home next week. You do business. All you got to do is handle your business, and you're 5-1 in the ACC, and you finish up with 2 games on the road at Georgia Tech, which is now looking more and more like a possible winnable game for Virginia. Georgia Tech's just 3-4 right now at this stage in the ACC season. And then Virginia Tech on the road. If you win out all the way to Virginia Tech, okay, put Black Friday on the back burner for a second. But if you win all your ACC games leading up to Virginia Tech, no matter what Virginia Tech does, Virginia has a chance to play its way in with a win at Virginia Tech into the ACC championship game, which we've never played in, right? And other things can happen. So even if there's a loss along the way, Virginia Tech is right now 3-0 in the ACC. They got some tough games coming up. They got Georgia Tech this week, got Miami coming up in a couple weeks. I think that's on the road at Miami this year. So, actually, I think that is in Blacksburg this year. Now that I think about it, they played in Miami last year. So anyway, the point being, there's all those stakes, but you got to go out and do business. And this team is playing for something that no Virginia teams have had a chance to play for a while. But we kind of remember last year, and I bring this up in this context now. North Carolina coming to town last year. Virginia, after back-to-back big wins, Boise State then Duke, played a really, on paper, bad North Carolina team. At that point, had just one win, just like this year's Carolina team has just one win. And Virginia escaped Chapel Hill with a 20-14 win. It took a Chris Peace sack at the midfield stripe in the final minute. I think it was about 1:07 to go to close that one out. And actually, Peace wasn't called for what should have been a 15-yard face mask penalty that would have continued that drive and given Carolina a first down inside probably it would have been inside the 35, maybe at the 30-yard line. That would have obviously extended the drive and given Carolina a chance to win that game. Point being here, all that you don't go into this one just because you're 9.5-point favorite, and Virginia's really rolling right now. These back-to-back wins over Miami and Duke. No complacency at this stage. And I think now Bronco Mendenhall was asked at his press conference this week, hey, essentially kind of the point being made that I'm making here. You had this scenario last year. You struggled in that Carolina game, and then of course Virginia struggled down the stretch, kind of handling prosperity, I guess you can say. And Mendenhall was asked the question, what do you do differently to get your team prepared and sharp for this game and games down the stretch. And he said, last year's team was last year's team, this year's team, this year's team. It's coach speak. That all said, yeah, he didn't answer the question directly. I don't consider that a direct answer to the question, but that there is focus in that locker room, and not only focus from the coaching staff, but players know this too. Bryce Perkins wasn't here last year. There are some true freshmen, Tavares Kelly, who were playing some roles on this team. They weren't around last year, but there are a lot of guys in that locker room who remember that last year they played great and to make some games in the second half meaningful and then drop the ball in those meaningful games. And so hopefully some lessons learned both by the coaching staff and particularly by the players that will get them ready. Now, and here's the thing too: this Carolina team is 1-5 overall, 1-3 in the ACC coming in. Got blown out by Miami a few weeks ago, 47-10, an embarrassing 41-19 loss to ECU. Before that, right after ECU had lost a game to North Carolina A&T from the FCS, and so Carolina didn't look good, and then the last 2 weeks have actually looked pretty good. Should have beaten Virginia Tech. Let's just say it that way. Should have beaten Virginia Tech. 19-14 lead in Kenan Stadium, 6 minutes to go. Fumble at the 1-yard line. Virginia Tech drives 98 yards, wins the game with 19 seconds left. But that's a game that Carolina did everything but win. And then last week, same thing. On the road at Syracuse, they led by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Syracuse rallied and ends up winning in 2 overtimes. And so, yeah, it's a 1-5 team, but they've played well the last 2 weeks. So which Carolina team do you get is the question. Do you get the team that played well but then made mistakes, or do you get the team that played poorly in the losses to Miami and to ECU? The big issue for Carolina is that they can't stop anybody. They allow 34.8 points a game, 13th in the ACC. There's only 14 ACC football teams. Notre Dame doesn't count. 411 yards per game, 10th in the ACC. Turnovers have been an issue. Carolina's at -8 in turnover differential this season. That's basically +1 a game for opponents. That's an advantage, obviously, for opponents. You get one more turnover a game than you're giving up. That's and depending on field position, that's a great opportunity. Carolina runs the ball decently, 8th in the ACC, 187.8 yards a game. Antonio Williams and Michael Carter, the guy who fumbled at the 1-yard line, both averaging over 6 yards a carry. In fact, Carter's over 7 yards a carry. The quarterback, Nathan Elliott, puts up nice numbers. He threw for 321 yards last week, 34 of 52 in the loss at Syracuse on the season, 1,241 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 INTs. And he's got a couple good targets, Anthony Ratliff-Williams and Daz Newsome, both 25 catches. The story, though, for Carolina is the defense or lack thereof, and that's been a case for the Larry Fedora era at North Carolina. Even when Fedora's teams were winning at Carolina, their defense was a questionable part of that operation. For Virginia, injury update. Bronco Mendenhall said Monday he expects Jordan Ellis will be at full strength on Saturday. You remember Ellis missed the second half. He went down with a left ankle injury in the first half. PK Kier looked good in relief. 12 carries, I think it was 36 yards, some tough sledding yards. So that may actually be good for depth down the stretch. You had to kind of put Kier into action in a duress kind of situation, and he performed well. That can maybe take the load off Ellis a bit. Now you got some confidence in PK Kier that maybe you don't need to use Ellis quite as much as you were having to use him before. And at least there's another option there anyway. Having 2 good backs there as opposed to just one with some test, so to speak. Bryce Perkins had a nice game last week, a nice bounce back game, I'll call it. No turnovers. That was the big thing for me. Then he threw a touchdown pass. He ran for 2 touchdowns, 189 yards through the air, 61 on the ground. Nice game. Error-free football is the best part of that. And then, some flash as well. The 23-yard touchdown run on the first drive. A simple play. I think it was a 3rd and 1 play. Simple play, but he outran guys. And then the touchdown in the fourth quarter that sealed the deal. It was a night. He breaks a tackle. The left. Let's see, from the right defensive end came in from the left side from the offensive formation, unblocked, and Perkins avoided that tackle. Then he was chased. He was running to his left, and we saw last week 2 of his INTs were late over the middle throws after being chased out of the pocket. But he made a perfect throw to Evan Butts. That Butts laying flat out in the end zone to make the catch. The ball was thrown only where Butts could catch it. And so a little bit of lesson learned there in terms of what you do with the ball when you are flushed out of the pocket. And good touchdown pass there. Then actually the two-point conversion pass was a nice one too to Alameda Zacchaeus that made it 28-14. So good game for Perkins and a good game for that Virginia defense. Virginia's defense, we don't think about this a lot. It's been a while since the defense has been this good, but third in the ACC in scoring defense, 18.4 a game, in total defense, 326 yards per game, and clearly the last 2 weeks has been great. Giving up 13 points to Miami, 14 points to Duke. And Bryce Hall is the reigning defending ACC defensive back of the week. Interesting. I was looking up the numbers because I like to look up numbers, and I've called it wrapping the field in the passes defense category in the ACC. He's got 16 passes defense, 14 breakups, and 2 interceptions. That's 7 more than the next guy, Boston College's Ham Cheevers. And then Juan Thornhill, who gets a lot of attention, he's got the 4 INTs tied to the league lead. And then Chris Peace, the aforementioned, the sack last year to finish out that Carolina game. 7th in sacks with 4, 8th in tackles for loss with 9. And so my quick look on how this one plays out, I don't want to say it out loud because the last 2 weeks I've picked against Virginia. I picked 2 close games. I was right in terms of the close game for the Miami game. Just thought they would make the plays at the end. Mark Richt put his team behind the 8 ball when he took N'Kosi Perry out and put Malik Rozier in and completely discombobulated the game plan in the second quarter. And that helped Virginia out greatly. Last week's game wasn't even competitive. Virginia got to the 14-0 lead. Duke got close for a brief part of the fourth quarter, but then Virginia took control and really led that whole game and led by a comfortable margin most of the way last week. So I kind of want to play the percentages and just say, hey, Carolina's going to win, just to not anger the football gods. But realistically, UNC is not really. I mean, on paper, they're not in UVA's league. They've been playing better of late. I noted that. Certainly the last 2 weeks they should have won both and could have won either. Didn't win either. Larry Fedora is on the hot seat. That to me, a team that can be dangerous when their coach is on the hot seat. All those guys got recruited by him. They don't want to play for a new coach. We saw this in Virginia a few years ago when Mike London was on the hot seat each of the last 3 seasons he was there. Sometimes your teams respond well. Those Virginia teams at least responded in terms of effort under Mike London. They didn't have the results, but they responded in terms of effort. They lost a lot of close games. Those teams back in the 2014-2015 era, I guess, the ones who come to mind. Sometimes those kind of teams don't respond well, though, because if you think that your coach is on the way out, you can say, okay, I want to play hard for this guy and keep him here, or you can say, it's time, they're moving on. Maybe we'll be moving on too. So how this Carolina team responds now to being 1-5 and their season's effectively just about over, we'll see on Saturday, obviously. And UVA's got something to play for too in a different way. Expectations. Last year we had them briefly, the 5-1 start, and then blowout loss to Boston College, a team that at the time you didn't think would be competitive with Virginia, and then they blew them out 41-10. This year again, I think there's some lessons that have been learned. And we'll see, the fan base is starting to think out loud about that ACC championship game. We'll see if fans show up. We still only had 44,000 for the win over Miami 2 weeks ago on a Saturday night. This is a 12:20 kickoff. Weather doesn't look good. I don't have my weather app on my phone in front of me, but I saw a weather forecast last night that says 44 and rain. I hope that is wrong. I hope I was missing a number there or something like that. That it's actually going to be 64 and something, but 44 and rain, and then a 12:20 kickoff. It's going to be, it's going to be tough to fill the stadium up again, and that's interesting. It's a tough way to play football. When you're a good team, you want to have some fans behind you, and it's likely not going to be the case just because the weather's not going to help. Help fans who are sitting on the fence about whether or not to go to a game. That's not going to help things out. You got to win the winnable games. This is a winnable game. I think Virginia wins this one, and I don't think it's really going to be close. I think Virginia's defense is just too good. One thing that was interesting, only 15 red zone trips for Virginia opponents this year, and only 8 touchdowns on those 15 trips for Virginia opponents this year. Virginia's offense has been in the red zone 24 times this year for comparison. And so the defense is not only they're not the old philosophy of bend but not break. They're just not even bending this Virginia defense. I think Virginia 38-14 is going to be my call on this one, and we'll see how things go on Saturday. I want to get Scott German on the phone this week. Haven't been able to track him down yet this week for for our usual weekly chat, but we'll try to do that this week and get Scott's thoughts on the game. Also this week, of course, what we got coming up? A wrestling talk tomorrow. I got Seth Meganson. We'll do some weekend picks. See if I can track down Jerry Carter and talk about the. He was at the Duke game a couple weeks ago, the Duke Georgia Tech game, and get his thoughts. He watched the Duke Virginia game, get his thoughts on both those games and some other stuff as well. So a lot of stuff coming up here on the podcast situation for Augusta Free Press listeners. Thank you for listening again. Remind you that our preseason preview book is out. You can get it on Amazon. It's $1.99. I'm not asking for a lot of money there. It's a good read, I hope. Roughly 40 pages of reading material for you there. And it's available again on Amazon.com. $1.99. You can find the link on the Augusta Free Press website, both the digital and the mobile. It's all over the place there. Hopefully you'll want to partake and find out what Virginia's chances are here coming into 2018-2019. I want to thank you for listening here to the podcast. Signing off, Chris Graham. Wahoo-wah.